As Pink Floyd said, money, it's a thing. I think that's the lyric from the song Money. I don't know. But we brought James Hogan on. He's a financial advisor to give us the basics of investing. I personally think not enough people in our generation, especially men, are preparing for the future financially. James gives us some really helpful tips on how you can start saving early on in your life, or actually at whatever point you are in your life, to build that financial nest egg for retirement. So enjoy episode 19 of The Hearty Gentleman.
Oh, is it me?
You may speak.
So today's Hearty Gentleman episode. Before we get started, we should talk about our sponsorship. Colin, can you guess who we're sponsored by?
The Fleshlights.
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
We are sponsored by a program that's very near and dear to me as a migraine sufferer.
Yeah.
It's called Migraine Rescue.
Okay.
Have you heard of Migraine Rescue, James?
Only through you, but yeah.
Yeah. What do you know about it?
It started as like talks.
No,
About
it's my own program.
I know that,
Oh.
but you started it as like a talk on was it
Migraines?
YouTube?
Yeah, a few videos on YouTube.
About migraines and avoiding them.
Yeah, or helping people get over their Look at that.
He knows the origin.
He knows the origins.
Look at that.
Yeah, I'm a real Christopher Nolan that way. I like the origin story.
So yeah, Migraine Rescue is sponsoring this podcast. Thank you, Migraine Rescue. You're welcome. So we are joined today by James Hogan, who is a financial advisor.
That is correct.
And I think it's important. I want you to come on because it seems to be something I noticed in my life where people aren't really paying attention to, is like planning for their financial future and doing things at an age where everyone seems to be living paycheck to paycheck and saying, the future is whatever. I think it'd be cool to have a conversation about that because I think a lot of our listeners might not be set up in that way. And I think when I talk to people, it's like, oh no, it's too big of a thing to worry about right now.
Well, that's the thing. It is too big because it's the biggest thing. You know, it's probably buying a house or saving for this purchase or that purchase is the biggest purchase you'll ever make. So avoiding it because it's too big is almost contradictory because it's something you have to take care of eventually, right?
Do you find like do you have a lot of clients who are of like, let's say 25 to 35-year-old range, or do most people that age just not really take an effort into starting to build their future?
No, I mean, it's tough to sometimes make them see the bigger picture because they're worried about buying their first home, or they're worried about paying rent and paying their bills and, you know, a million other things that don't add up. When you talk to a 25-year-old about retirement, you can imagine how unimportant it might seem because you're not doing it for the next 30 years, right?
Yeah.
Who worries about a 30-year problem now, I think, is their mindset.
There's a demographic I could say, but I won't. Colin knows. Yeah, it's true. Like, you got me whipped into shape after that one conversation. I was 28, 29.
When would have been 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah, 29.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, maybe it's time I actually start worrying about saving.
Yeah, I mean, for people that have the ability to do it, I think it becomes intimidating for people that are like, you know, what's the point of saving $50 a month? It's not even, you know, $600 a year. What's that gonna? I think you're probably just building discipline. You're buying into the idea of being in the market. You're buying into the just kind of getting your feet wet starting off. People have no idea how quickly that'll add up, and then once they see success over a short or a long term, they get more and more. Just like you saw some success early and was like, you know, maybe let's up this, let's up that, let's do a little more, because I think as you get more and more comfortable with the idea, it becomes easier to fathom.
I think we started with $150 a month,
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
That's
is in and of itself is still pretty good because that's $1,800 a year right there.
Right, but it's because of what you said. I was like, oh, if I can't save 20 grand a year, 30 grand a year, what's the point of saving? But then you're like, just start with 150. And I started with 150 and I didn't even notice that it was gone. Then it was like 200, then 250, then 300. And we did like small $50 a month changes over the whole year. And then I just slowly got used to the fact that I was putting more and more money away.
Right. And then you look 2 years down the road and you're kind of like, I remember we talked 2 weeks ago and I don't know what, I think I read out what the accounts were and you were kind of like, what?
Yeah, I know.
Like they've gotten bigger, like, and you don't even notice it. And you're kind of thinking like, how did this happen?
Yeah, and then it becomes almost like A, you get more addicted to saving.
Right.
And B, it's like more realistic, your goals. Because I think now, I was reading that people our age in their 30s need to save $2,000 a month to be able to retire by 65.
It depends on the type of retirement they're looking at, but
Yeah, I can't remember where I read that. Maybe the Star.
yeah.
But because of inflation and how our dollar's just not going
As far,
right, that if you want to live a decent lifestyle, you're going to need more than $1 million when you retire.
Yeah, it depends on the type of lifestyle you want. Some people just, they pack up their work tent and then, they really don't do a whole heck of a lot. If you want to retire at 55 and still be very active and travel and do all that kind of stuff, you have to be extremely realistic with your goal. I think that's the number one thing, is having like the realistic goal that you have in mind, whether you're 25 and you want to save to, you want to have that $100,000, or at 55 you want to be retired in 5 to 10 years, and have that amount that you want to be able to spend every year. It's about having like a realistic goal set in place and just working towards the goal. If you're just kind of throwing money at something willy-nilly, it's much harder to track your progress.
You got a lot of old man sayings. Feet
I think it comes
willy-nilly.
with the territory. Ages me.
Yeah, like, so I think it'd be cool to actually explain. I don't know if everyone knows what inflation is. I know to you
the easiest way to look at inflation is if on January 1st a loaf of bread costs $1, the next January 1st, on average, that loaf of bread is going to cost you $1.03. And if your wage hasn't increased by that same 3%, let's say, and that's an average, probably a little bit high on an average, but you'd rather kind of shoot higher. But if your wage hasn't grown by that same 3%, you're now behind by X amount. If your wage has grown by 1 cent, you're 2 cents behind.
Yeah, and I think that's important to understand that. And just saving money won't necessarily be enough if you're not at least making that 3-4% a year.
If you're focused on, like a realistic, if you're focused on like, the long term, you're 3 or 4%. I mean, no one guarantees returns and all this stuff, past performance, not indicative of future, all that stuff. But if you're investing in like good, solid companies that have a nice track record, 3 or 4% over the long term is certainly achievable. Probably.
And then you just your buying power stays the same as it would be right now. If like inflation, just so people understand, so if inflation is like 3% a year, your money would need to be making 3% a year to have the equal buying power in 20 years.
Precisely. So if that's why people that sit in cash, because they don't want to take that quote unquote risk of being in the market,
they're in a deficit.
You're safely losing money is the way to look at it, because your spending power is going down, and you're obviously not seeing any kind of return. So it is very safe, but you're actually kind of taking yourself out of the game.
Yeah, so that Nona, who just kept all of her money underneath the mattress, every year was becoming worth less and less and less and less.
But she was good because she was given all that money to like her 30 grandkids, right?
Yeah.
So they hopefully were doing it right.
Yeah.
True.
What's up?
What are you doing?
Just looking at you.
What's next?
We're dressed the same.
What do you got there?
I got a couple notes that I took, only if they happen to come up.
Well,
But-
this is how it comes up, Colin.
What are they?
What are they?
Look at how organic that was. That feels so good. No, it's just like the number one thing that you tried to convince me of the reason that it's a good idea to come on here is because you were talking about like not necessarily the mental health aspect of it, but at least relieving stress as, you know, money is apparently based on like the Financial Planning Standards Council, which is basically a council that oversee the industry in Canada. They took a survey, I think it was like 2014 or 2016. They said that money and financial issues were the biggest stressor of 42% of Canadians.
More than relationships.
Relationships was 19%, work was 17%,
Health?
and then maybe health was the second largest.
So 42% of people, their number one stressed fact is money.
Is money and finances.
And that's why I was thinking
it's a huge thing.
And that's why I really wanted to have you come on. It's like we've had all these people talk about health and wellness, vibrancy, frequency, training. But if you're stressed out all the time, that's going to be detrimental to your health and you're not living a fun life. So like I got to give you credit. You completely changed my association to money when I started thinking like that. Because in my mind, I was always like, I don't have a pension. Who knows if I can afford a house ever?
Right.
Like, what's my savings going to be? And you're like, just start with 150. And that was the big mental shift to me. And then like, yeah, it's been a lot easier to work that way. And I've read all the books, like The Healthy Barber. I don't know if you've ever read that book.
I didn't read it. No, I
Or The
understand
Wealthy
the
Barber.
premise.
Have you read it?
No.
Basically, the main premise is like out of sight, out of mind. So if you make $100 grand, take 10, throw it somewhere, don't even think about it. Like just take 10% of your paycheck every time and get used to spending 90%, or maybe and then 80%, then 70%, and then over time you've built this big nest egg, and it's not hard on you.
A real life application of that is like everybody knows TD Bank. If you took $10,000 20 years ago, invested in TD Bank, had the dividends continually reinvesting back into TD. You started with 10 grand, like you said. 20 years, it's worth $100,000. So, and you didn't do anything. You just took $10,000 one time, invested it, and in 20 years, it was worth $100,000. 10 times the amount.
And you don't need to be Warren Buffett.
Yeah, you buy everyone, it's not like, you don't have to be a genius. It's TD Bank, What's so difficult about that? Right? You can do it yourself.
Yeah. So let's say for some of the young men listening, or ladies, what would be a good first step, you think, for them to start getting into investing or saving? Or
if you have the confidence and the discipline to go online, do the research, form what would I call it? An informed opinion. You can do it yourself. You can open up your own account and start your own TFSA and RRSP, and you learn the tax implications of an RRSP. Very simple stuff. You can do it yourself. If you don't have the time to be doing that, like a lot of people, especially the people that I think are going to be listening to this, like entrepreneurs, not a ton of time on their hands, right?
Yeah.
They're just doing their business. Interview a financial advisor. Interview 5 of them. And that's as easy as walking into your neighborhood bank and scheduling an appointment. Just interview a person, find a person that you gel with, that you feel like you can trust. And that takes some time to understand what's important to you, what you're working towards. Do not have someone sit across a desk from you and take 15 minutes, do a risk tolerance questionnaire and say, here, you should own this. Work with someone that you feel is trying to understand what you want to do, and will put together a strategy that you can stick to very easily. And someone that obviously you feel like you have a good rapport with.
Yeah, because you don't want to be changing that person every year.
Definitely not. No, that's certainly not. You want to be having a constant person. You want to partner with them for life is what we say.
They should be teaching this in schools.
They should. Like, for me, I didn't need to know how to build a bridge. I wasn't going to be an architect. I didn't need
But we still
physics,
had to build.
but,
We had to build those. Remember those popsicle bridges?
Oh, of course.
Did you ever have to build that?
No, I didn't do anything in school.
Wasn't there for that class.
We had to build in grade 7. I still remember. I got so screwed over. Mind you, my stepdad helped me build it, so they were right. But you had to build a bridge using popsicle sticks and glue.
Mm-hmm.
And the test was to see if it supported a certain weight, then you got a different grade. I got this guy who was so overweight that when he would walk, it actually felt like earthquakes on the ground. He was like 350 pounds. And we had this
This is grade 7.
grade 7. We had this old school, and he'd walk, and he was a very heavy guy. And I got him to stand on my bridge
Why?
to prove that my bridge was strong, and it
Okay.
didn't break.
Oh.
What?
It didn't break.
This was made of popsicle
Sticks. Val's like a genius with this stuff. So I was dumb, and they're like, "Oh my god!" The teacher was like, "What'd you use?" I'm like, "Just popsicle sticks and wood glue." They go, "Aha! You're only supposed to use regular glue, not wood glue." Even though it's not really that big of a difference. So they gave me 80% instead of 100. Because they knew deep down, like, Jordan, you didn't build this bridge, man. I'm like, yeah, but I was showing an entrepreneurial way. I outsourced the work to someone.
He built the whole thing?
I stood with him and gave him, like, supplies.
Oh, fuck off.
What would an entrepreneur do?
You should have got 40%.
What are you talking about?
You should have gotten half of what Val got. So he got the 80 and you got half of
he
that.
got 100 if it wasn't. Okay, this is where I argue with you. This is why I think school is flawed. I'm a business owner. I've been given a task, build this thing, do this thing, okay? If I realize my skill set isn't good enough to do it, and I outsource the best person to do it, and I give you the best available product, my product would win in the market. If we were selling bridges out of that class, no one would beat me. I'd low cost, supported the most amount of weight,
100%.
I would win.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you're a student. The teacher has asked you.
No. The assignment was build a bridge. It didn't say you build a bridge.
Asked you to accomplish a task.
And I did.
You didn't accomplish
I accomplished it. I got the bridge built.
But you have to know how to do it.
Does Trudeau get credit when he does stuff?
Well, I'm not going to.
No. If something happens,
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that.
does Trump get credit when stuff's done?
No. If a teacher asks you to show your work when you're doing math, it's so you understand it. And as you start to show your work, you gain a better understanding. You would have gained a better understanding of physics if you had done that yourself. That's what she wanted.
Lawyer.
Not for you to sell.
Do I look like Nikolai Tesla? Do I look like Tesla?
No.
Do I look like Tesla? Do I look like Edison? Do I look like Newton?
You look like a student in a
Yeah,
class.
yeah.
I'm sure you were of height.
How tall was I in grade 7? I don't know. I had big, like, circular Harry Potter glasses.
Did you really?
Yeah. I wear contacts right now, yeah.
But the thing is, now that's a thing. 2018, you were
I
way
know, I
ahead
would
of
have
your
been.
time.
I had my afro and I would have been the hottest guy in school now.
Wow, you're like white Drake.
Yeah.
Basically,
Or basically Drake.
yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I was ashamed of being Jewish. So I didn't mention it to anybody.
What?
Yeah, because I didn't go to school with a lot of Jews,
Really?
so I got made fun of. Like, there's me, Alex Cohen, Jonathan Wiseman, Alana Bax was like half Jewish.
That was it.
Tanya Ozersky, yeah,
Look at you. Wow.
that was it. And so I was embarrassed by it.
What school was this?
Roselawn.
Mm.
So I'd actually, because my stepdad was Italian, I would be more comfortable telling people I was Italian.
And they would believe it.
And they believe it because I look sort of Italian. Like, I could be Jewish or Italian with my look.
Mm.
So
Let me tell you something, son. It's against the Torah for you to deny that you're Jewish.
I know.
Oof.
I've asked forgiveness.
Yikes.
I'm putting that on you. I'm putting that evil on you.
It's okay. That was decades ago. So, wait, how do we get on the bridge tangent? Oh, school.
You
Yeah.
were talking about school.
Why don't they teach this in school?
I don't know, man. No, like, how do you not teach TFSA?
So TFSA,
RRSP.
RSP,
That's all you need. That's
tax, interest.
I mean, yeah. No,
I had
really,
no
yeah.
idea
Hold
when
on, hold on. TFSA, you just said that. What does that even mean?
we're gonna go into it.
Okay.
Yeah,
But I
okay,
had
cool.
no idea, just as a sidebar, that when I took a line of credit, I had 10 grand of debt. I had no idea that I couldn't just work, 50 hours, or how much would it take? At $20 an hour,
Mhm.
50 hours,
200 hours.
2 hours, 200 hours. No, $20 an hour, 500 hours.
$20 an hour?
Yeah, 500 hours.
500 hours.
So I didn't realize that I couldn't just work 500 hours and pay that debt off. Like, that I'd be taxed on it, and then the interest was going up, so I was taking like part of my income was getting ripped away, and then
Right.
the interest. They don't teach you that, and they like give you credit cards at 18 years old. Like in university, I still remember just signing people up for BMO Mastercards. Like it was just like the thing to do at York. So
I used to do that at like go to a hockey game. You want like a free shirt that says Maple Leafs on it. You sign up for like a credit card, and no one knows that it actually affects their credit score because you're applying for more credit.
don't worry, I know someone who hacked the system.
Someone, I mean, now I think it's pretty common.
Well, now I think they have the online way to do it, right?
What?
Like right away they'll do it, or you just handwrite something?
No, now it's online.
So the handwriting one, I was like, they never took an ID from me.
Right. So you could sign up whatever you wanted.
I never did that.
Yeah, now it's like they need an ID, they verify everything. Yeah, anyway.
So let's go with the TFSA. What is a TFSA?
So tax-free savings account.
Oh, okay.
There's no justification on why you shouldn't have one. Entrepreneur, whatever, it doesn't matter. I know entrepreneurs, like the thing I hear a lot from them is they like, I'll reinvest it in my business because I know exactly, what my return on invested capital is.
Yeah.
So you put $1 into a TFSA, it grows to $1 million. You can take out that $1 million. Is a crazy situation, obviously, but you're not taxed a penny.
So I think it's important to understand too, because most people don't. Maybe people automatically know this, and I'm misjudging, but when you make money in the stock market, you have to pay tax on the income you've made.
Not immediately in all different accounts. Like, so RRSP has very different rules. TFSA has very different rules. And then you have like
but if you had like a
non-registered individual account, that is where you'd be taxed on dividends or interest. When you sell something, you'd incur a capital loss or a capital gain. That would be all added to your income for the year you're doing it. So if TD pays you a dividend on December 31st, that would be dividend income that you would immediately have to claim as earnings for that year.
So if you make 500 grand on TD,
Yeah.
you have to pay it. Is it similar like income tax rate, or it's different for everybody?
No, on capital gains. So you take 10,000, it grows to 20. You pay tax on half of those capital gains. So you've made $10,000, you cut that in half, and that's what you would pay your marginal rate on. That $5,000 would get added to your income for that year.
Oh, so it's dependent on your tax bracket.
Yeah. Well, it just gets added to your income, and then whatever tax you're paying.
But if you use a TFSA and you do the same thing, there's no tax you have to pay.
Not 1 cent.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So like you need that basically.
I mean, yeah, it's a big piece of the retirement picture, and I think it was introduced. This is just me, thinking about it. There were just not enough tax deferral avenues for people. There was the RRSP. If you owned a business, you could invest within your business at a much lower rate than if you did it outside of your business. There just wasn't enough tax deferral avenues for people to grow their money without having to pay a boatload of tax if they did very well. And that's why the TFSA is so it's just such a great tool in retirement planning because there's no tax involved in anything you do inside the account.
There's a limit though, right, on how much you can put into your TFSA?
Yeah, so lifetime limit right now is $57,500.
So $57,500.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then it goes up incrementally. So I think it started for the first 4 or 5 years at $5,000. Then it went to $5,500 for a couple of years, and then Stephen Harper took it to 10. Trudeau brought it back down to $5,500 the next year, $5,500.
Oh, so that 1 year, 10,000.
You can do 10,000. So the total room works out to 57.5.
So every year they're adding like 5 more.
55.
And then if I've never invested, I can go back to the beginning.
For every year you're over 18, starting in 2009, I believe, is when they introduced the TFSA. So if you were 18 in 2008, you've got all the years. If you were 12, you have to first turn 18 and then you only get the first year. So for that, the year you turn 18, you would have the space for whatever it was that year.
Such ageists. Wow. They don't want young people making money.
Yeah.
What about the 12-year-old? Like now my time traveling wouldn't work Because if
You
I went
take that paper route money
the $200 a
and
month.
you just wait 6 years and you open up a TFSA.
I used to do a paper route. I'd make $70 a month.
Yeah, I had one. I made $100 a month.
And you thought you were balling.
I couldn't believe how much money I had.
And like, I still remember.
I was in grade 6,
I know.
making $100 a month. I was just like, come on.
But it was so many hours. Like putting all
Oh
the
my
fillers
God.
in. People don't realize
The
that.
ads.
That's like slave labor in a way.
Oh,
You're
it's
paying-
not
you're
even
making-
close to minimum wage.
You're making like $1 an hour.
Yeah.
Like you're literally there.
I remember my first. It was the Saturday, and this guy in this like short bus would come by your house, drop off the Liberal, and all of the inserts that had to go. And the first weekend I did this job, this guy comes and drops off, and there's samples of toilet paper that we had to put in these samples of toilet paper. I kid you not, that we had to take and put inside the like the bag that you left the Liberal in at their doorstep, right? I couldn't believe how much time it took. And my parents got involved. They're like, no wonder no one wants this route. Had like 120 houses.
Yeah. It would take me like 2-3 hours to prep it and then
Yeah.
an hour to deliver.
Yeah.
So 4 hours, 3 times a week, 12 hours a week, 48 hours a month, and I'd make like $70.
It was Tuesday, Thursday, and
So
then
it's
Saturday or
$1.85 an
Sunday.
hour. $1.85 an hour.
Wow.
How is that legal?
That's amazing.
How is that legal?
It's pretty amazing.
I remember, I did it for a year, so I made roughly $1,200. And then the next summer, and I give my parents like the gears for this so often. I wanted to go to summer camp with my buddy, overnight camp. So they're like, yeah, sure, no problem. They go into my bank account and use my paper route money to send me to camp. I found out years later. I was like, what? Where's my money? It's hilarious.
You got to put that $1,200 in a TFSA. Oh no, there's no TFSA back
No
then.
TFSA
Colin
for me. Unbelievable.
dropping shit everywhere.
So that I give them the gears on that, and they laugh every time because they jobbed me. That's good. Instilling work ethic. That's what they tell
tell
me.
you what the government does. Takes part of your money. Tax.
Yeah, all of it. They took all of it.
So, yeah. So my time traveling plans are ruined.
What do you mean?
Like you always say, I'd go back in time. I'd make all this money, but it would get taxed. There would be no
Well,
savings on it.
Having to pay a lot of taxes is typically a good problem, right? It means you're making money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I wanted William Shatner at once. Do you know what he did?
Priceline?
Yeah.
Took stock in Priceline? Yeah, genius.
He made
Oh, did
he made
Yeah,
a little
he
bit of
didn't get
money in
paid
Star
for it.
Trek, and then they paid him in Priceline stock.
No, that's when he became the Priceline negotiator. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then he got paid, but that's how he got paid in Priceline stock.
right.
And then he became at one point worth like $800 million. William Shatner, because he was given so much stock, and the price of Priceline went like this.
Yeah, it's and now I forget what it's called now.
Oh, like or Trivago or something.
No. Like the stock changed from Priceline to something else.
Priceline blockchain.
It's yeah, Priceline blockchain. I can't remember what it's called now, but yeah, it's like $2,000 a share or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
So okay, we understand the TFSA, RRSP.
Okay, so easiest way to think about it is you make $100,000, let's say. Every year you report that as income.
Mhm.
You can take 18% of it,
So $18,000.
$18,000, or if you make like $1 million, you can't take 180,000. It's either 18% or somewhere in the range of like $24,000, and I think that gets indexed 2% a year, so 24,000, maybe 24,500 the next year. There's a maximum of, let's call it $24,000. And if you take that 18, if you're making $100,000, you basically put it in an RRSP, your income that you pay tax on gets reduced from 100,000 down to 82,000. So you're only paying tax on that. Does that make sense? So your income comes down a little bit. You pay a little less tax, and you'll get a rebate back from the government after you do your contribution.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And then like you can take that rebate if you want, put it into a TFSA.
Yep.
True.
Game in the system.
And then I guess it while things are inside the RRSP, they grow tax free as well. So
Okay.
the thing, it's tax-free is tax-free savings account, and then this is tax deferred. So when you're retired and you're assuming that you're making a lot less money in your retirement than you were while you were working, when you take the money out of the RRSP, then it's taxed then. So instead of making 100,000, say you're making 50,000.
So you can take out
that's when you taxed.
So you take out like your $5,000 a month. Your
Right.
tax rate's lower than if you're making $100,000.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
See these basic things that like we don't learn in school.
Like not at all.
I know.
No, you don't learn them.
I
It
know.
doesn't make any sense.
Such a sexy topic too.
Mm.
See,
It's interesting. I mean, it's
interesting.
something. It's oh, look at this guy.
Ah, whoa.
It's very punny of you. Very punny. But yeah, they don't teach it, and it's probably not something that people understand if they haven't looked into it. You don't just know this stuff.
It's insane when I speak to, like, I don't have too many conversations about it, but so many people just trust this, like, they just trust the system to take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they just like, mom and dad are government. I'll take my money, give it to them. I'll put it in my bank account, or I'll get a GIC, maybe a bond. And they're just like, yeah, I'll get a pension plan with the government or whoever. And they just think everything will be taken care of.
Yeah, I think, when I talk to people who are not doing financial planning, sometimes they're like, I have no idea what's going on. And I think the reason for that is going back to that 42%. If it's your biggest stressor, you tend to just forget
avoid
about it. Yeah. Out of sight, out of mind in a bad way.
Yeah.
So you suddenly don't have this stress. The downside to that and not paying attention to it is when you're thinking about retiring and you've got 5 years to really figure it out, you don't have time to be creating that nest egg anymore. Now you're assumedly at the end of your career. Maybe you're making a good amount of money, but you're not able to put enough away to fund the rest of your retirement. Could be 35 years that you're looking at.
Wow.
That's the problem when it's out of sight, out of mind.
That's such a sad ending.
I know. Tony Robbins' book, Unshakable. Have you read it?
No.
He had a really interesting graph where it showed that what matters more than how much you invest is the timing. In the sense of like what age you start.
Right. Okay.
So if you start at like 18 and you put in like $2,000, whatever you can, and you just stop, and let's say you have $50,000, you'll have more money than, let's say, somebody in their 40s starting to invest.
100%. And they could be doing way more. Oh yeah.
Because of compounded interest.
Yeah.
Wow.
So if, like he was saying, like the average is 7%. Or whatever it is. So you make 7% and then you make 7% on the 7% and your initial and 7% on the 7%. That's compounded interest. So you're always making percentage on your percentage.
Yeah.
So say you make 10%. $100, right? You go to 110. Then
7%?
No, sorry, 10%. Let's say we do 10%.
Okay.
So you start with $100, next year at 110. Then the year after that you make
11.
$11. But it sounds small, but then after like 20 years, you see how impactful it was.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like 20-year-olds are not being, they're doing the opposite. They're going into debt. They're going to school.
Yeah, they're
debt.
doing the exact opposite.
And then to get out of that debt is like really hard.
Mm-hmm. And people, I just, to go back to what I said before, people just, they can't understand getting in front of a 35-year problem.
Well, they want to go on that vacation now.
Mm-hmm.
They want to have that cool car now. They want to have the nicest clothes. They want to go to the nice restaurants. And they can do it. They fund their life with Visa or all their cash. Instead of like maybe doing 80% of what they think they should do and put 20% away.
Well, they're also not getting the story that you just said about like being like 55 and also you have that only 5 years or whatever to
Right.
decide. Like nobody really thinks about that part. Nobody
No.
hears about that part.
Did you come
No.
across that ever?
With younger folks or
No,
older
like,
folks?
Folks. Feet wetting. What was the other one? Getting your feet wet.
Willy-nilly.
Willy-nilly.
And folks. Folks is a good one, though.
James is
I've actually aged 4 years since I got into this chair.
Bobby Button. No, what's the name of that? Benjamin Button. Yeah. He's actually 95 years old. He's just going.
Great though.
Don't worry, the camera shows the worst angle.
Perfect.
So, do you ever meet people later in life where they're like, I should have started earlier?
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, a lot. And it's too bad. People that got it 30 years ago.
Yeah.
if you know, it's tough to reprogram a person at 55 years old, as you can imagine. You know, if it wasn't, you know, if they didn't see a priority to do it when they were 30 and they were starting to make real money and build a career, it's very difficult to get them to see it now. I mean, that's what we try to do, just a goal. All you want to work towards when you start off working with an advisor or just working by yourself is have that goal. You want to have an idea of something you're working towards. I want to save $100,000. I want to save to buy a house, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
When you're working towards something written or something that you've got right in front of you, tangible, it becomes a lot easier to realistically follow it and hold yourself accountable to making sure you're following it. It's tough to do that at 55. How are you going to do it? You don't have time.
Unless you're making like $1 million a year.
Right. Unless you're in a real good situation. But usually you'll see that people that are doing extremely well understand the value of saving already. They understand the value of $1.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So the other thing is, I think we have an anxiety, especially in Toronto. Because our parents, it was like, get a house, put all your money into the house, you have that asset, it's real. But, you know, like, the average condo price is what, 600 grand now, 700 grand in Toronto?
It's crazy.
Like a house is 1.1 million. So I think that's another intimidating thing, is people are like, I can't even get in the market. But you just can't get in the house market. And that's sort of what you helped me through too, was you can't get a house, but there's other things to invest in that you can start building your equity, building your income, building your net worth. So I know you can't talk about we're not going to talk about particular stocks and stuff, but like, what are other avenues outside of real estate that people can look at?
Well, for me specifically, it's getting into solid companies, long track record, things like that. If you want to sit down and interview an advisor, they're going to give you their opinion on what they think is the best way to go about it, and that might be. You know, it's all going to be pretty much the same, and that's why you need to work with a person that you're confident is understanding your situation. Apart from housing, there's obviously the stock market and things like that. But, you know, if you don't want to get into that, budgeting, being fiscally responsible. There's another great term for you for being like a 95-year-old man. Fiscal responsibility. Whoa. I mean, it starts with like just, I would say just make a goal for yourself, honestly. Save X amount of your paycheck, save X amount a year, and whether you want to invest it or not. You know, we talked about how you should because of inflation and yada, yada, yada. But, you know, if you don't want to start that way, at least, in the market, at least start where you're saving money and you're understanding how to effectively budget. All things a person that you're working with would help you out with.
So, but maybe what I want to dig a little bit more in is, so there's stocks.
You're right.
A lot of people hear about mutual funds.
Yep.
What is a mutual fund?
So mutual funds is essentially a basket of stocks. They all do very different things. They come with an MER, which is a management expense ratio, usually around 2%. It's important that you understand what you're paying for, and where that money goes. Basically it's a basket of stocks, you know. So if there's mutual fund A, it might be a Canada-based mutual fund where they go out and they buy all of the large cap, you know, big name companies in Canada. You're talking about your banks, your insurance, your oil companies, things like that. There could be mutual fund B that is international. You know, they buy just about everything. Canada, US, Europe, Asia, all that kind of stuff. And then you can get into more niche things like small, mid, and large cap. You can go sector specific. So, I want to buy up a mutual fund that only buys oil companies or only buys financial companies, things like that. And then there's the ETF side as well, which is basically, you know, if there's the TSX, these are very different from mutual funds. They're a lot lower cost.
TSX is a
TSX
exchange.
is our exchange here in Canada, our main Little echo. Our main.
Toronto Stock Exchange.
Yep.
Would it be TSE then? They don't know how to spell.
I don't know. TSX is what they call it.
Okay, so Toronto Stock Exchange, and then an ETF is a exchange traded fund
or equity traded fund.
Equity traded fund.
Because not all ETFs necessarily mimic an exchange. So they don't necessarily mimic the NASDAQ. Or
Right.
They could mimic, an oil sector, a tech sector.
But it's the same idea as a mutual fund, right? But it's traded on the actual exchange.
Yeah, it's traded like a stock is.
Okay.
Where a mutual fund, you're essentially buying shares of a mutual fund. You're buying units.
Yeah.
There's costs associated with it sometimes not. That's a whole different conversation. But an ETF is traded like a stock, on the exchange itself.
So there's more options to just housing people. You can get
but this is the stock market. Like a GIC, a bond, a stock,
GIC
a mutual fund, an ETF. Guaranteed investment certificate.
So you get into an investment, it might be a 3% guarantee. At the end of it, you get your 3%.
Right, and your principal is guaranteed typically. Well, it is.
Principal is what you initially put in.
Correct.
Yeah. It's funny
And
when
at
you
the
talk
end
to
of the
people in different
term-
worlds, like they just use terms that I think everyone knows because you speak
Right.
in it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've never heard that before.
Well, it's basic. It's a good it's a hedge against a bad market.
Okay.
So if markets go down, you're making your 3% with this amount of money in these GICs.
So it's like combating inflation almost.
Yeah, and a hedge against down markets because it's not changing. That value is going to stay the same.
And bonds?
Bonds are a lot similar to a GIC. They're not so. If Rogers has to raise money, they want to build a new infrastructure network, whatever. They've got two ways of essentially raising money. This is very layman's terms. They can issue more stock. Okay, so they'll put more stock onto the TSX, for example, and people can buy it up.
But that devalues the stock that's there right now.
Saturates your share count. So yeah, fundamentally the stock should go down because there's more stock at the same price, right? So it should go, or more stock at the same value of the company. So the stock price will go down to reflect that. Or they can issue a bond, which essentially they say, okay, people in Canada, we are looking for X amount of dollars. We want you to basically loan us the money, and we're going to give you a bond that says, at the end of, let's say, 5 years, you're going to get that principal back, and every year, we're going to pay you 3% as an interest payment for you lending us the money.
Yeah.
And the principal is protected by the credit of the company Rogers.
And Canada has bonds.
Yeah, and then they have different yields that you'll see because, a Canada savings bond is obviously much more secure than a Rogers bond. Even if you think Rogers is this massive company, they're never going out of business, that kind of stuff. If the government of Canada can't pay you its interest payment, they'll literally just print more money.
Yeah.
Whereas, everyone makes the joke that Rogers prints money, but they don't. Right? So they have to offer you a higher yield, 3% versus 2%, to attract, investors because there is inherently technically more risk of buying a Rogers bond. Was that the most long-winded answer ever, or?
No, that was good.
Okay, perfect.
As long as they're informative, right? Because we're just trying to speak to an audience maybe that isn't so financially literate, I guess.
Right.
And they might be, right? And it's just good review. But like for me, this was, I felt like I was a well-read person.
Mm-hmm.
And I even took like the first part of my securities exam, and I forgot to start investing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was just like, even Selena was talking about it yesterday, the seasons of an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Like your head's down. I was head down, focused just on working, producing more income, getting better at my job. Meanwhile, like I was in winter mode for my personal savings.
Yeah.
I wasn't even thinking of it.
Huh. Why would that happen?
Because I don't know. And that's why now, like, I don't even, honestly, like, I just give my money over to my advisor.
Yeah.
I don't worry about it. It's not my expertise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that way my stress is, I don't have any stress in that department
But
anymore.
right. So, and the thing is with you is you don't have the time to be doing it yourself.
No.
You probably could if you had more time.
Yeah.
But you don't.
No, it's not fun to me. Like
Right.
it's, I used to think, you know, cool, I'll buy. It's too much anxiety in a sense. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather just someone who knows what they're doing take care of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're like, you know, they're advisors that don't manage their own accounts because they want to take all the emotion out of the decision making, right? They let someone else do it. Even though they're in the business, they'll have another advisor actually managing their money.
And people can have
Yeah,
more than
just
one
simply-
advisor, right?
Yeah,
Legally?
you can have 20 of them if you want, but you want to make sure that if, let's say, 2 or 3, it's probably realistic that you work with at least 2 or 3.
Because that diversifies your stuff.
Yeah, I think there's, you know, fundamentally, one person's going to do the worst job, one person's going to do the best job, and one of them's going to be in the middle if we're looking strictly on a performance thing. And then there's rapport and there's service. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it. You just, if you want to work with more than one person, by all means, but just make sure everyone's pulling on the same rope. You know, everyone, the plan should be the exact same, and they should all know what you're working towards, what you're comfortable with in terms of what you buy and hold and own. They've all got to be pulling the same direction, right?
Yeah.
It's only logical.
Yeah.
I just never think of this because exactly what you said, like the anxiety that comes with it.
Right.
Yeah. You have to take the
It's
emotion
too big
out
of a
it.
thing, right?
Mhm.
Instead of taking day to day, month to month, it's like, how am I going to save $1 million, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's it.
That's what everybody.
so actually one of the most financially literate people ever, Method Man and Redman. Do you remember
Right,
the skit?
naturally, because when I think of
Do you remember the skit,
financially
Dave
literate.
Chappelle? Well, no, it was Wu-Tang Clan.
right, the Wu-Tang Clan, like investments or whatever it was. Yeah.
Diversify your bonds.
Oh yeah.
So what does diversify mean?
Don't have all your eggs in one basket. You know, if you're going to own 10 stocks, don't own 10 oil stocks. We saw how much of a disaster that was like 3 years ago. Diversification means different countries, different areas of the world. Diversification means a whole bunch of different things. It just means have different. If you have to buy 10 different stock, let's say you want to have a couple bank, you want to have maybe an oil company or two, you want to have your tech, you want to have your healthcare. It's just about, you know, having different things to kind of offset if one thing goes badly for you.
So if all of a sudden like telecommunication just plummets
Right.
and you're in Rogers and Telus and like, so it's more maybe beyond than being like, okay, I'm diversified. I'm in Roger, Telus and Bell.
That's not diversification.
Right.
Right.
But you could be, because they're all the same.
right.
But if you're like I'm in Rogers, I'm in TD Bank, I'm in Manulife Insurance.
Yeah, and then it goes past just owning stock. It goes, you know, we talked about GICs as a way of diversifying. Having cash is a way of diversifying. Fixed income bonds is a way of diversifying. You just want to have a nice mix, and when you talk to an advisor, you will sit down with them. You'll go through how much risk you're willing to take, and risk really, you know, how comfortable are you holding a stock that could go down? You know, Facebook just went down by 20%, what, a week ago or two?
Yeah, in
2
like
weeks
one
ago?
day, right?
In one day. It's the largest down day for a large cap company
How much did they lose in a day?
history.
Wow.
Yeah.
How much did they
in
lose?
history. I want to say 111 billion in market
Not
cap.
even Jeff Bezos' net worth.
No.
Isn't that crazy? He's worth enough to handle the largest drop ever. And he'd still be richer than almost anybody on the planet.
Yeah, it was like 20%. And it was the biggest drop by a large cap company in history. In one day.
And people think Facebook, like, oh, they're going to be around forever. They own Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And what's that?
But they haven't monetized Instagram.
They're
I think we're
starting
getting
to.
too specific now.
No, they're
Might
starting
get in
to.
trouble.
No. Well, no, I'm saying Instagram's starting to monetize. They got the sponsored posts.
They have ads and stuff.
No, yeah, you can.
Ads, they
I
have
did it for
sponsors.
one post. It got me like an extra 3 views.
Whew.
It was fire.
Yeah, you have to know how to do it. There's a method to it.
So they talked about how are we going to monetize Facebook. The whole movie went into it. Remember?
Yeah.
How
Social
slowly
network.
it or how long it took to monetize the platform. They'll probably do the same thing with Instagram because I don't know. Like, do people really use Facebook that much anymore?
There's a certain because I just came from a conference this weekend where they talked a lot about like how doctors can reach to patients.
right.
They were actually showing demographic, like people in their mid to late 30s onward, Facebook.
Really?
Yeah. Instagram is people like
Right.
it was like 22 onwards, and then younger than that Snapchat.
Yeah, of course.
But that's the demographic everybody wants, is the people using Instagram, right?
And
Yes.
I think Facebook.
You want the people that are using all three.
Yeah.
But I mean, it depends. It depends on what you are doing and what you're good at.
Right.
So like, if you're not good at like little clips, then stay off Snapchat.
Uh-huh.
You know. But if you're good at like long form stuff,
Do you say little bits or little clips?
little clips.
Little bits.
But if you jump on, if you're good at long form stuff, you can go on Facebook. You can go on Facebook Live. Like there's so many
Right.
Like we could
right.
turn on my phone right now,
Mhm.
like Instagram. That's what I love about it. We could do a live post.
And you can do a live post right now.
Should we do it?
And that live post will be shit because people can't hear the audio properly.
Okay.
So we shouldn't do it.
So, no.
Sounds like a terrible idea then.
Yeah. So it doesn't.
3 guys sitting in a room.
That one's me, I assume.
Dun dun dun. Yeah.
Just I guess for anybody who's like, I guess somebody who's, I don't know, let's say early 20s, they're just starting their job. Maybe it's not a career, but like they want to save. They want to
Mhm.
start that whole process. They know the value of the dollar. They just don't have that many of them. How can they go about starting?
Very simple. You can walk into a neighborhood bank and sit down with a guy, sit down with an advisor, tell them what you want to be doing. I want to save $25 a month. I want to save $50 a month. For a person that age, early 20s, they're going to have some TFSA room. That's probably the best bet. They want to, because they're probably not making a ton of money. So RRSP is probably not that important just yet. You want to save that room for when you're making a lot of money, so you can bring your income down like we talked about.
Yeah.
So for the TFSA, you can just walk in, you can set up an automatic debit from your bank account every month. They'll take it and put it in whatever you choose to invest it in, and
I don't even
see you
realize
later.
it now.
Takes an hour.
And I think
And then wait, from there, is it just now it's happening like automatically?
Yep.
It's just, and they don't even have to think about it.
No.
And also, I think that this is important to mention. Like for me, I had this anxiety. Maybe it was just me. I'm like, no one will want to deal with me because I can put $150 a month away. Like, why would someone want to waste their time on helping me out?
I wouldn't look at it that way.
But that's how I was until like I spoke to you. You're like, listen, you start, because I think it's important too to find an investor who's like, yeah, you're here now, but let's build this relationship. I'll be here later in your career. Let's get going.
Precisely. So if you come across if an advisor comes across a person that they see a ton of potential in, they're going to look at them like, right now, if I can kind of get you to buy into the program and the way we do things at company A, B, C, whatever, it doesn't matter. When you're up and running and really killing it later in your career, I'm going to be your guy. So you're investing in the relationship early, and you're kind of just you're partnering up, right? You're both starting.
It's like starting a business
relationship.
almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think guys should think of, or guys and girls should think of that too. Like, just because you're not, worth 200, 300 grand a year, finding someone who wants to take the time to help you, even if it is only saving $1,000 or $2,000.
Yeah, you're starting a partnership. It's easy as that.
Yeah.
True.
Just like me and Colin started the Hearty Gentlemen.
There you go.
Can always count on Jordan to just leave some dead air so I can do some stuff here. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you very much, sir.
I could sing.
Beauty.
No, he has to.
Switch battery.
The cameras can only record for 30 minutes at a time, and then you have to I didn't know that either, and they
Okay.
overheat.
It's only
Oh,
Sony.
okay, gotcha.
It's only Sony, Canon, but like there's one company that doesn't. It's
The-
called Luminex.
And red too, right? The red cameras.
Well, Red is like professional grade, so they do whatever you tell them to.
Oh, I saw that clip of your podcast earlier. It looked super high quality.
Yeah.
Like the video.
So, Dead Air Break is back. So this is the part of the show where we
Uh-oh.
do sing your favorite song.
Actually?
No,
Wow.
Jeez Louise, I would have chased away all listeners.
no, you're actually when you had a really good song you freestyled once.
Butter chicken?
Butter chicken.
I still hear about that.
Butter chicken. I can't believe that restaurant closed down.
That's killer.
We had the best Indian restaurant. We'd go to Agra. Then
Young
they
and
did it.
Shepsky.
Yeah. And then they did a rebranding. They did a facelift, and it
Yeah.
got worse.
Yeah.
Okay.
They like
it was new ownership, I think.
new ownership, but they're like, let's take this really good looking interior and make
Yeah.
it shitty.
Yeah.
And
It
then,
didn't feel homey anymore. It was no good.
no, it felt like a cafeteria. Before it felt
Mhm.
like authentic Indian,
Mm-hmm.
like big chairs, and it closed down.
Oh, the butter chicken though. Oh my god, so good.
Yeah. I found another place that has really good butter chicken.
Everybody talks about like, no man, you want butter chicken, you go to this place, and I'm hesitant to try it.
Of course.
We should have just.
Had my place, and now it's gone.
Yeah, if you had good
Since
stuff
you've
there,
been gone.
don't go for it. It's just gonna be a disappointment.
Exactly.
It's
There
like
you
if
can't.
Your dog died and someone else was like, "I got a dog." It's not the same
Yeah.
dog.
Yeah.
Don't try
Yeah.
Are you
Can't
comparing butter
replace the
chicken to
dog.
dog?
that. I've never had butter chicken.
Have you
nor
had a
I
dog?
Nor have I had dog.
Well, dogs are good. Got to get a dog.
Not to eat, to like.
Not to eat. Not to eat. No. Dogs are good, delicious, high in protein. No, dogs are the best.
Really gamey. No. So what else? What are some? I don't know. Because I never think about.
Oh.
Because I always try nothing.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
People are always trying to time the market.
Yeah.
So historically, though,
Mm-hmm.
according to Tony Robbins in his book, he's like, don't try to time it. In 20 years, you'll be ahead if you just start.
Definitely.
So, you always hear, oh, it's not the right time to invest. Things are up. I got to wait till it
Mhm.
crashes a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Robbins showed that even if you did really well in your up years and you weren't investing in the years that were down,
Mm-hmm.
you're actually not as ahead as if you just started and were consistent. So-
I'd have to see that. I can't comment on that specifically, but
But he even included the Great Depression, the tech bubble boost.
if you're investing while the market's going down,
So as long if
Yeah,
you're like
I would
consistently
agree
like,
then.
I'm going to put $2,000 a month away, and every month you put $2,000 a month away, and you don't care what's happening to the
Mhm.
market,
Mhm.
over time, you're going to be far ahead than trying to plan.
Right. If you're consistently doing it as the market goes down, that's essentially dollar cost averaging.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's great if you're doing that. If you, the whole thing about, it's not a good time to invest. We hear that all the time. I remember I heard it 3 years ago I know exactly his name. I'm not going to say the name, but I would call this guy and he'd say, no, it's been 7 years. This must have been like 2015. It's been 7 years. There is no way I'm getting in the market right now. This, as soon as we hit September, everyone uses September for some weird reason.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird. It's like
It's because it's back to school.
this unwritten rule of like September, right? But I don't know. He was so adamant though. He's like, it's been 7 years. Look back. The markets are due for a correction. It's been 7 years, 7 years. And obviously we see how the market's done since September of 2015 until now. It's been great. So
But we didn't know Donald Trump was going to get elected.
I am not touching that subject with a 10-foot pole. Just you guys can go on that one. I'm
so Colin,
not
I
touching
think
that.
Donald Trump,
What?
Uh-oh.
since he's been in power, the stock market has the biggest growth it's ever had.
I don't know about
Since
that.
2016?
I don't know about that.
Growth it's ever had.
Something like that. That's not excusing everything else he does, but
Everything that had, there's too many things along.
yeah,
I
I'm
don't
not
know.
saying
I
it's-
wouldn't know.
People
not-
don't know if it's his economy reflecting it. People don't know this or that.
What is he really? I think it's just like people are. I don't know why that happened.
I mean, when he gets elected, what, November,
20
and then inaugurated
February, yeah.
January, February. The activity in that time was astounding. It was really good. 16 into 17, right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
The guy hadn't even been inaugurated yet. He had nothing to do with that. Oh, I'm getting into it now.
That's why
I'm getting into it.
It's 'cause I brought that point up because it's really not his economy.
No, it isn't.
It's
You're
not his
absolutely
economy.
right.
It's the economy of it's
Say it since you brought up Trump. Whose economy is that?
of the people's.
Oh, is it the people's?
Yeah.
So it went from Trump to the people's.
Yeah.
Go ahead and say the name. Whose economy is it?
I don't know.
Go ahead.
I don't know.
Whose economy is it?
The
How could-
people.
How could it go from Trump's?
I was
the
just I was saying since he's been in power, the government's gone up.
Whose economy
Or
is
since he's been in power, this I don't
I
know.
like that. I like that you say since he's been in power.
it? Yeah, right.
It's true. I didn't even think of that.
So Obama's economy you're seeing. Thank you.
I'm not touching it.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, yeah. Look,
Because that's how it works.
but Obama also unfortunately was there, and it wasn't his fault during the 2008 crash
I guess he would have
because he
no,
bailed
he
out the
would have been
banks.
elected at the end of that year. Wouldn't
Wasn't
that
he
be
in
correct?
2004?
Exactly.
Oh yeah, he just got in. He had to bail out the banks.
It would have been,
George Bush.
yeah, for most of it.
I wonder.
That's not his fault.
I'd like
That
to
had
see a
nothing to do
graph
with
of
him.
like how the economy does based on like a Republican leader or a Democrat. I wonder if they have that.
I'm sure they do.
I want to see how long a president's economy actually takes to form.
You could. I
That's
don't
like
think you could
different.
put your finger on that.
Especially
don't-
now,
yeah.
because economies now versus 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Mhm.
So
Things are there's so many like I read some crazy stat that like in 10 years or in 20 years, like 80% of the Fortune 500 companies won't be there.
wow.
I mean, that's based on what?
I don't know. It was in that Unshakable book.
That's a bit of a reach.
It was the guy from Vanguard who helped him
Wait,
write it.
how much?
It's I don't know. I'm gonna misquote the number, so I don't know.
Perfect.
Uh,
Yeah. So
yeah. So you haven't watched Rick and Morty?
Never seen an episode. I heard about Pickle Rick episode
Did you watch
everywhere.
Yeah.
I saw the clip.
it? Pickle Rick.
you can't just see that clip and be like, I'm pumped to watch this.
You got to start.
No,
that
I would
episode
assume
was
you
perfect.
have to start
Season
at the
1.
beginning, of course. Yeah.
It's that and South Park are my two most. For comedy, that and South Park are pretty close for
Mhm.
me.
South Park is comedic gold.
It's gone a little bit downhill.
It's been 20 years.
I know. That's
Like, think about how
and
badly.
you're broke.
And it's gone. Put your money into some diversified bonds and get some GICs here, and it's gone. Perfect. No, but like, can you remember like The Simpsons hit 20 years old and it was unwatchable? South Park is still at least relevant.
How is The
and
Simpsons
funny.
still on?
They're like they're what do you call that? Like an American. They're like part of the culture of America at this
Yes.
point.
But people still watch it on Sunday nights?
I cannot imagine anyone watching that show.
Oh yeah, of course. The kids. That's all it is. It's the kids watching young people do dumb things and not catching all the adult content.
What do you
Yeah,
think about
that's what I
Simpsons
think.
predicting the
Sneaky
future?
comedy.
Yeah, because like when I watch like old episodes of The Simpsons, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah,
that's-
yeah,
they were
yeah.
talking about that.
Yeah.
Did you hear the conspiracy theory that Matt Groening predicts the future?
Yeah, they've been right on like an astounding amount of things.
Yeah.
Me and Colin were having that conversation. She's like, "Yeah, but he would have done a show of the future." I'm like, "Colin, he did Futurama."
Yeah, blew my mind.
And that blew his
Holy
mind.
fuck.
And then they're making a new one, like a medieval show.
What's it called? Game of Thrones?
Game of Thrones, Simpson style.
Oh,
No, I don't remember what it's called. It's brand new though.
You haven't watched Game of Thrones though, Colin.
I know, but still.
You
should-
have not watched Game of
I've
Thrones.
never watched one episode.
Oh my.
I've never even seen a character.
If you here's the best thing. If you can smash through the 6 or 7 seasons
Without hearing any spoilers?
that they've got, you will not be having to like avoid social media because it's not on right now. And then the final season is going to air like April of 2019,
Yeah.
and you could
Oh
just
my
slide
God,
right into the
dude.
final season.
It's just like,
Dude, you're missing out.
Oh yeah.
You can
Oh,
either
and I
watch
don't talk about like it's so good. Like it's alarming how good it is.
and the next season, I think every episode's an hour and a half or something.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy.
It's like each episode's
You,
going
I
to be a
think
movie.
you need to be on board with this simply to be like the last season.
It is going to be the most historical TV show of all time.
Wow.
It's
How
it,
dare
it
you.
it'll go down as
It's bigger
like
than The
one
Wire.
of the top 5 for
It's
sure.
bigger than Sopranos.
in terms of numbers.
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. Game of Thrones, they said if everyone who actually watched it was watching on HBO, it gets like 20 million downloads an episode. Can you search how many downloads it gets an episode?
But the thing is, that we're talking about the best show.
It's better than The Wire.
Breaking Bad is the best show.
No, it's better than Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad. Is,
Breaking Bad was good, but Game of Thrones just does stuff to you because you don't see shit happen. Like it just
Yeah, and it's like devastating. No one is safe.
no, you got to watch it.
Oh, there are some characters that go down. You're like, no.
I know.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh man, you have to get into it.
and like they'll build up some characters. You're like, oh, I love this guy, just to take him away from you.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, they do that, eh?
Like Wire and Soprano are two of my
Game
favorite
of
shows.
Thrones record even with 1 billion illegal downloads. It's breaking records in legal downloads, even with 1 billion downloads in illegal.
So they
Better,
said
like,
if-
torrents and
Yeah.
stuff.
So what they were saying is if everyone could pay, if everyone like I would just pay for like, can you buy the episodes on HBO?
No, you probably have to subscribe to something.
If everyone would pay for the show that watched it, apparently they can make a Marvel level quality
Right.
for each episode.
Really?
That's because if a billion people are downloading each episode,
You think they'd pay $2 or $3 to watch an episode?
you don't even need $2 billion an episode.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
So let's say 30 million people. Let's say 40 million people watch that show and would pay, and they pay $2 an episode.
Mm-hmm.
That's $80 million an episode. Even if they throw half of that in production,
Mm-hmm.
that's for an hour-long episode. That's a lot of budget because they don't have to put the marketing. They have to pay.
I
the
have
actors.
no idea how HBO makes money. Is it simply based on subscribers?
Yeah. I don't know why Sacha Baron Cohen didn't go back on HBO.
Probably they didn't offer him the same amount of money, I bet.
His new show. Did you watch he showed me the episode with this guy Roger Moore.
Roy Moore.
Roy Moore.
Yeah, because they don't. Sasha doesn't have enough pull to like go.
He was huge on Ali G. That was HBO.
That was so long ago.
Yeah.
You think he's gone down a bit in his status?
No,
No. Are you seeing this new show?
yeah, his status is still there, but to go to HBO and be like, "Hey, I'm Sasha, give me like more money than anybody," they'll be like, "No."
I bet you just he pitched it to a bunch of networks, and Showtime, I think it's on Showtime, was just like, yeah, we'll pony up, and he took the highest amount. Forget it.
Exactly.
Forget about this. What's his
Roy
name?
Moore, man. Oh my
Yeah.
god. You have to check this out. This guy gets killed.
This technology will.
Oh my gosh, the pedophile.
Yeah.
Not the pedophile. I'm not calling Roy like he had. There's a.
Allegedly.
Yeah, there was a detector. That's not.
That guy. I don't know how he doesn't break character. I wonder if he has good fiscal responsibility, James. What do you think?
I hope he does.
And that's a lesson, actually. There's a lot of people. It's not how much money you make, because there's all these people who make tons of cash,
Mm-hmm.
and they never put any away,
Mm-hmm.
and they got nothing left. I know
Football
everyone laughs
players.
about MC Hammer. Football players are that. NHL players.
No, it's not as bad with the NHL, I don't think. But there's a crazy stat a few years ago about like NFL players, the average NFL player being bankrupt 2, 3, 4 years after having left the league, had nothing left.
They made a show about that, Ballers,
I've never seen it.
on HBO with The Rock.
I saw Ballers. That's only because every female counterpart was gorgeous. That's
Yeah.
the only reason I watched.
Well, it's HBO.
So
Basically Entourage for football players.
yeah, that's what it was. There was one football guy I was reading on Market Watch, and they were showing his philosophy. He
Mhm.
wasn't a high level player. He made like 2-3 mil a year, but he was spending like he made 120. So he lived his life like he made 120 grand. They bought their house.
Oh,
off him.
120 grand.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So he bought his house like he's making $120,000. His car was like a decent BMW, but that was
Right.
it. And he banked the rest.
Mhm.
So they're like, yeah, I'll be fine the rest of my life.
Yeah, he's sitting pretty. Yeah.
Do you know who had really good, luckily really good friends? Allen Iverson.
Yeah.
Because he spent a lot of his cash, but one of his friends.
I thought Allen Iverson was like
No.
teetering on
No,
bankruptcy.
no. He just, one of his friends was like, we're going to take this $50 million. We're going to put it into a trust fund. You're going to get paid $1 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get all of it till you're like 60 or something.
Really?
Yeah, he talked about it in his documentary. Like that friend saved him from being broke.
Yeah, maybe the story was like he used to travel with like such a huge entourage that was literally on a payroll to be around him.
Or Mike
And it was
Tyson.
costing him millions of dollars a year.
Mike Tyson was like that too.
Yeah.
He had $350 million in the 80s. Gone. He was richer than LeBron James, any of those guys, in equal dollar value.
Mm-hmm.
That's so sad.
Did you hear the story of Michael Jackson and that VJ from, what was it, MTV?
No.
You hear the story?
No, a VJ.
VJ, like the DJ, but like the
Like
video
the
job.
interviewer.
Yeah, the interviewer.
Okay.
So this guy's at a party. He gets to this club and he gets in line, and he was sort of famous because he was on MTV, famous enough that Mike Tyson knew who he was. And he went up to Mike Tyson. They were like hanging out, and they're like, "Hey man, let's go. Why don't we go party? We should go check out this new club." And it was like the hottest new reggae club in New York at the time in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So like, sure. And he's like, "Let me get in the car." Mike's like, "Man, leave your." Can you do the words?
What?
The Mike Tyson accent.
No, just do your tell the story. You can't
So
ask
Mike
me to tell
Tyson's
the
like,
story.
yeah, man, leave your car. It's fine. Just come with us. So they get in the car. Mike's driving a Rolls. All these people are driving these super expensive car, and they're ripping on the highway, and they go to this club. They get to the door. They walk up. The bouncer's like, he can't come in, points to Mike Tyson. And this is like Mike Tyson in his prime. And he goes, he's wearing a velour suit that doesn't fit in, like it was sweatpants and sweatsuit.
Mm-hmm.
So the VJ's like, listen, man, like you might want to go tell the owner of the club that Mike Tyson is standing outside.
Right.
So they go tell the owner. Mike was like, screw this place, fuck this place, and he's about to leave. And then the guy was like, calm down, Mike, we'll get in. They get in. It's like 2 a.m, And at that time, New York had a last call at 4 a.m.
Okay.
So Mike goes to the owner of the club. He goes, everyone's drinks are on me till 4 in the morning. So he paid for everyone's drinks for 2 hours.
Wow.
They get lit up. They're about to leave. So the club, they party. They're about to go. The guy's like, hey, Mike, I need you to bring me back to my car. He's like, nah, man, you don't need to. He goes, no, Mike, I need my car. He goes, here, just take mine. And he gives him the rolls. So he takes the rolls. He's like, I can't park this in my neighborhood. Like, this is a $400,000 car. So he drives it to his mom's, parks it in the back, goes upstairs, sleeps. His mom comes knocking on the door. You know, whose car is this? Why is there this car outside? She goes, it's Mike Tyson's mom. He didn't have Mike Tyson's contact info, nothing.
Yeah.
He just kept his pager on. So a week goes by, and he's like, I should probably turn this car on. So he turns the car on, leaves it in the driveway. Another week goes by, he takes it out, he starts driving around the corner, like just to make sure, because the engine, like stuff will
Just
die.
keep it primed.
Keep it going.
Yeah.
A month goes by. Finally, after a month, he gets a call. I don't know the guy's name, but it was Mike Tyson's manager at the time. And he's like, hey, do you have one of Mike's cars? He's like, yeah, I got the rolls. He's like, okay, we'll come pick it up. They come, they pick up the rolls. He doesn't think about it. 10 or 15 years goes by. He's in Vegas. The first time he's seen Mike since that night. And they're talking, they're reminiscing. And they go, man, you remember that night? He goes, yeah. It's like, you remember that car I gave you, that rolls? He goes, yeah. He goes, I wanted you to have that car. That was your car. Let me guess, like my managers came and picked it up and took it from you.
Mhm.
He goes, yeah. He goes, that was supposed to be your car.
Wow. That's so weird.
He gave him a $400,000 car,
What was he banking a fight back then?
20, 30 mil in the 80s,
Right.
which is equal to probably 70. Floyd Mayweather thinks he was the number one earner. Dollar value, yes, but not like buying power. Like Mike made more.
No, but Floyd, how many fights has Floyd been in?
No,
where
Floyd.
he's made 50,
I
100
know,
million.
but what I'm saying is he had $350 million in the 80s. If you
Right.
take inflation, which is
3%, let's say.
actually go to inflationcalculator.com.
No.
I want to just see. I'm curious. Go to inflation calculator
Of what?
because I used to do this with
Just
Mad
in-
Men.
Yeah, it's just, it'll be a
'Cause
number.
Mad
for
Men
sure.
would always put money in, like he got paid $5,000. I'm like, psh. And then I'd go to inflationcalculator.ca, put in the $5,000. I'm like $80,000 Canadian. Then I put the inflate. Then I do the exchange rate. I'd be like, wow, Don Draper was balling.
So weird.
I know. That's how my brain works.
Yeah, it's like 2.5%, 3%.
So,
But I don't know about that because Floyd is 51 fights or 50 fights.
Mhm.
And how many times has he made $50 million?
He's not many. He was
What?
making 20, 30 mil. But he started making a lot of money, I think, after Oscar De La Hoya. That was like the first big one.
And how long ago was that?
He became Money
Mayweather, because he was Pretty Boy Floyd.
Pretty Boy Floyd.
And then he started fighting. And I don't know when he actually took on this new persona of Money Mayweather, where he was
Mhm.
more the villain. He'd start wearing the colors of his opponent. So he'd put on like Mexican shorts when he fight a Mexican guy.
Mm-hmm.
And Oscar De La Hoya, I think, was the first like massive blockbuster he was in.
Okay.
Something like that.
So that would have been what, like in the late 90s?
2009.
What? Oscar De La Hoya, 2009?
Floyd, yeah.
Okay.
2008. I was working at Foundation Room at the time. I remember that night because our place was dead. It was such a big fight. The place was dead.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Oscar
Hmm.
De La Hoya.
What do you guess he banked for
Conor?
McGregor?
400 million. 300
Wow.
million. Connor got him 100 mil.
Conor got 100.
Yeah, so Floyd definitely got like.
I think Floyd got like 4. They did
Wow.
6.9 million pay-per-view buys or something.
It was a record,
At
wasn't it?
$100 a buy.
Wow.
Was it 100 a buy? Wow, I didn't know that.
Plus they had a huge gate and all the advertising and the build-up and the
Mhm.
showcase show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Connor got just 100 mil.
Oh, that's
Oh, jeez.
poor guy. Poor guy.
Come find me.
Let's start putting your money in. We'll diversify your bonds.
And it's gone.
And it's gone. Yeah, man, it's crazy. Like some of these guys make so much money and they just spend it all.
And now that YouTube guy's doing the exact same thing that Mayweather and McGregor did.
Who?
Logan Paul.
What's he doing?
He's doing a boxing match with some guy.
Oh wow, I did not know that.
Yeah,
you
I
look
guess
a
they-
little bit like Logan Paul.
Thanks. So
Actually, you know you look a little bit like,
Here we go.
honestly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Nicolas Cage.
Nicholas Cage.
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Yeah,
one.
you do.
I've never heard that.
Your face.
Okay, go ahead.
That's what I was going to say.
You were not going to say
I
Nicolas
was just going to
Cage.
say
That's
that.
the only person
I get Steven Stamkos a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Look him up. He does look like him. You do
So-
look a little bit like Eric Trump.
Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible.
Especially when your
I do
hair's
not
like
want to
that.
be associated with it. Never mind, I can't go there.
Yeah.
So I think they're doing the same thing. He's fighting some dude. I guess they had a YouTube beef because it's 2008 and it's 2018 and people have YouTube beefs. So they're having a boxing match, and then you know PewDiePie, right? The YouTuber.
He's fighting him.
No. He made like a joke video about these two going around like Connor and Floyd did, making fun of each other, and it's just like they're gonna make millions of dollars off this. These two YouTube guys.
Logan Paul is hated right now for some reason.
Yeah, he went to Japan, the suicide forest, found a dead body, and then taped it, and then released it. Massive backlash.
There's a suicide forest.
Yeah, there's a movie about it with, funny enough, the girl from
I thought you were gonna say with Nicolas Cage.
Game of Thrones.
Which one?
Marjorie Tyrell. I don't know what her name is in real life. You know who I'm. Yeah, you know who I'm
Dude,
talking
look up this
about.
girl.
What?
Look up Marjorie Tyrell, Game of Thrones.
What he was supposed to look up Stamkos. What do you think? That's pretty close.
Yeah.
Let's get that one the
Dorn.
most.
Something Dorn's her name.
Dormer. Natalie Dormer.
Look up Natalie Dormer.
Why?
Just trust us.
She was in some movie about this suicide forest. Apparently, it messes with your head.
Yeah, the suicide forest. So yeah, they go in there because it's like a whole thing, and they kill themselves.
Yeah, people go in there and apparently just.
Shame themselves. It's all about honor.
So they went in there and found a guy hanging from a tree or something, and they filmed it. But he makes like.
You know who made a? But I don't know because PewDiePie got his money like 90% down.
Yeah, but PewDiePie was also making like $20 million a year.
Yeah, but they took away his ad revenue because he had not some good political beliefs or something. I don't know. He did something that was politically incorrect.
Yeah.
And that's been a whole thing now because people on YouTube who aren't politically correct are getting their ads taken down.
I hope some of these guys, like, I don't know how old Logan Paul is or PewDiePie,
Are saving their money.
are like putting away so much of their money because I don't know how long.
PewDiePie's parents are like CEOs of companies.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're like super smart. So is he.
He seems like a pretty smart guy. He's just like an imbecile,
He's
right?
actually a moron.
Right.
He's like, that's what he even made a video. He's like, I'm just not gonna do stuff like that anymore. He's like,
Because he started as a guy like a Let's Play guy,
Yeah,
where
he'd
people would
play.
watch him play video games.
yeah, and he'd be like, blah, blah, blah. He's like,
Yeah.
he's like, and I get
He was
it
on
that you
South
guys-
Park.
He's like, I get.
Was he?
He's like, I get that you guys like it. He's like, but I'm not happy doing it.
No, of
He's
course.
like, so I'm not doing that.
Right,
He's like, my
right.
content's gonna change, and if that means I don't get 30 million views an episode, then
Well, he's
That's
still
so-
65 million subscribers.
crazy.
What's so crazy? Because like, in its prime, what would Friends get?
Nothing like that.
What do you mean, Friends?
The show Friends. How many viewers
I
would
don't
it
know.
get?
10 million?
Nothing like PewDiePie.
Like these guys get view that crush.
I said it before. 10 PewDiePies can like really mess up the TV industry. If there's
Right.
like 10 of them with 70 million viewers.
But you know what YouTube's doing that's smart? They're YouTube Red, and
What's that?
it's like their own streaming series, and they did Karate Kid 2 or Karate
Yeah,
Kid
right.
Red
right,
Cobra,
right.
Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai.
Wow,
Amazing,
really?
dude. That series, I bought it. You can watch it. So you have to purchase it. It's like $2.99 episode.
Mm-hmm.
I watched that series like 4 times.
It's that good?
It's so. You look like him too,
Oh my god. I'm just what's that called?
Johnny.
No. Like what's that called? Doppelganger.
Yeah.
Got a million doppelgangers. I don't
So,
know if it's a good or a bad thing.
That show is amazing, man. Cobra Kai, and it got something like 9 or 10 million views per episode, and they charged $2.99, so it made like $400 million,
Mm-hmm.
and the actors are getting paid like.
Nothing.
No, they're getting decent
Oh,
money.
really?
Well, they would compared to what they would be getting. It's Cobra Kai. Like, what's the last thing the Karate Kid guy was in?
Right.
What's the last thing Johnny Lawrence was in?
Uh-huh.
So they're making like good cash,
It's the actual Karate Kid.
dude. It's amazing.
Yeah, what's his name? Ralph Macchio?
Yeah, Macchio. If you watch the trailer, it's the show starts with Johnny Lawrence on the floor after getting kicked in the face.
Crane. He got craned.
Yeah, then he wakes up 30 years later, and you see him as like an alkie, and like him trying to get his life back, but like him getting beaten that karate tournament destroyed his life.
Right.
Wow.
And it's all from his perspective.
Wow.
And they have a few episodes from the Karate Kid's perspective, and it's a really good show.
That's weird, man.
It's funny.
I've never watched the Karate Kid.
Okay, watch Karate Kid 1 and then watch this movie. You don't need to watch 2 or 3.
I'm pretty sure I'm not going to do that.
He will. He
Split
will.
it up.
He will.
I'll watch the new one.
You won't get the new one if you don't watch the original. It won't be good.
Well, then that's not good production. Okay.
No, because it's a continuing storyline. It's
4
30.
scripts on YouTube Red's part. Just
Yeah.
saying it now.
Only
There you
made
go.
$500 million. Bad production. They're gonna listen to you. They're gonna be like, shit. we listened to Colin, maybe we would have made $700 million.
Well, that'll be in the near future, but for now.
Yeah, the Hearty Gentleman's gonna get 35 million viewers.
I hope so.
Could you?
So,
No. Joe Rogan gets like 2 million or no?
Is
7
that
million?
what kind of inspired you to do this? Because you're a
No.
big fan of Joe Rogan.
I love what Joe's doing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was part of it. Just this is actually a lot of fun for me.
It seems that way. It does.
Yeah.
Genuinely saying that.
Like it's fun. I get to talk to cool people. I learn more about stuff I want to learn about. I would love to have a platform people are listening, so people I know doing really good things can get exposure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's why I did mine, yeah.
his is really cool. Colin's is called The Process. It's all about the creative process.
Right.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, you should follow up with Gina.
Yeah, I definitely.
We'll see what happens.
Definitely.
Yeah.
100%.
So, right as we're about to surmise this.
You've used it
Summarize?
So many, summarize? That would be a better. But
I don't know. What's surmise?
Like end?
I think that's like deducing. Surmise. I'm surmising something. Aren't you like
I'm
putting...
not a wordsmith.
You're Sherlock Holmesing something? You're putting it all together?
So we're gonna Sherlock Holmes this episode. Is there anything else you think people can? Any other little last tips?
No, I would just say, if 40%, let's call it 40%, I think it's 42% of Canadians think that this is their best stressor, the best way to alleviate that, take stress away from your life. Because stress to a certain point is fine. You need it, right? You need that fight or flight to kick in and propel you. But when it's like chronic stress, you're talking about risk of heart attack. You're talking about high blood pressure, lack of sleep, all things that eventually can add up to negatively affect your health in a substantial way. So just getting started on things, meet a person, go interview a financial advisor, make them earn your business, find someone that works with you that you have a good rapport with, find someone that you think values what you want to do and understands that you want to accomplish goals and will help you do that, and then partner with them and just kind of stay on track and if you come up with a plan, stick to the plan.
Mm-hmm.
It's as easy as that
Okay.
Perfect.
to surmise.
Well,
Talk.
Surmise. Suppose that something is true without having evidence to confirm it.
Let's not surmise anything. Let's not surmise anything.
Wow.
I've been using the word surmise.
No, I haven't
in
used
at
surmise.
least 10 episodes.
Never.
At least.
Never. Colin's editing them all out.
No, man.
He's not. He's gonna let me get embarrassed every time.
I like the dynamic here that you have the quote unquote guest, and then you're doing like the because Joe Rogan has a guy that does the same thing, right? Like throws in like the YouTube searches and chimes in.
Yeah.
This is good.
It's fun.
Thank you.
This is
So, anyways, thank you, James, for coming on.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
Again, thank you, Migraine Rescue, for not only creating the best program for people with migraines. No, it's actually a good program, guys. I know I've been making fun of that, but it can help a lot of people out.
Stop plugging it.
There'll be
It's
some-
out. It's not even out yet.
It'll be out soon, and there's gonna be a lot of free content too. In fact, I was thinking of doing a Bill Burr style episode where it's just me talking about migraines to myself. No?
I feel like you have to have someone to bounce stuff off of.
Colin.
That you need.
Oh, okay. If you're gonna do it too.
Me and Colin
Yeah.
actually do something I think is very unique. At the end of 10 episodes,
Mm-hmm.
the 11th episode, 21st episode, me and him will sit back and just summarize like what the last 10 episodes have been like.
Nice.
And like
I like
things that's
that.
changed and
Yeah, that, and also I think a part of that's going to be us, because like what we're trying to do is break the stigma of masculinity and give guys a different way of thinking, a better way of thinking.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think part of that is opening up, and like within those episodes, I think we're going to start to do that too.
So
Open up about some shit.
I don't know much about the other topics you've been doing, but how does this fit to opening up, just having the conversation about like, listen, man, it's a problem,
the way I'm looking is like, what has changed my life to make me happier?
right?
You helping me to start saving and realizing it's all possible and taking that stress away from me.
Mm-hmm.
It's been huge. So it's not breaking vulnerability boundaries maybe, or
Right,
but it's
right,
it's
right,
something
right.
I think really practical
Mm-hmm.
that men and women should listen to and can help them out, and they'll be very grateful at 65.
There was a crazy stat that I heard. It was like, so relationships where people share finances. about finances specifically, if they were transparent about their anxieties in finance, they argued like 58% less than couples who were not transparent and therefore had a bunch of anxieties because there were so many unknowns.
Look, there's a lot of guys who want to act like they have more money than they have to try to get the girl.
Well, I'm talking specifically about couples
No,
who
but
are
even
together.
that, I think, like, you know, there's a documentary show, 90 Days Fiance.
Oh, boy.
I watched a few clips of that one. But no, I think a lot of guys will pretend to be a guy that they're not. They lease a nice car, they put on a show, they take you out to
Right.
good dinners.
Yeah, of course.
And then it's like, they don't want to share that maybe they actually are in debt or they're broke or they actually can't afford this lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And then how long can you front that?
Right.
Yeah, that and also probably just a couple, you know, like a guy, girl's spending as much as she wants, and the guy doesn't really know how to curve that or talk to her about it, so they're fighting.
Girls and guys, man.
And she's thinking, like, why is he flipping out over this little thing?
Yeah.
Really, it's the other bunch of things
But-
that
Right.
she bought this week that's, like, messing with her.
It's both
Right.
sides though, because guys will
Of course.
sometimes go and like lease a super expensive car.
Yeah, yeah.
I got this watch or whatever. And it's like,
Yeah.
you didn't consult me.
Exactly.
And we were talking about with Selena on the last one where it's like, I started noticing the best, healthiest relationships are entrepreneurs working together, like
Well, I think
husband
it's-
wife teams.
Yeah, you have to be partners in
Yeah,
everything.
but they're like partners in their business, they're partners in their money, they're partners in everything about their life.
Yeah, I guess for younger folks, whether they're just living together,
Folks.
folks again. Damn.
Do you want us to grab a banjo?
It's what does that have to do with being old?
Just imagined you with a banjo.
Yeah, all right. Okay. It's more of like a southern thing, I think, than an old person
Folks, y'all.
thing. But even for people in relationships, it's still about the plan, right? You can still have that plan together. It doesn't have to be a solo job.
Yeah.
Right? You're working together. If the plan is to be together long term, which you'd assume it is, you're working together the same way, right?
Definitely. How do you suggest? I guess this is a quick question before we wrap. How do you suggest somebody actually stick to what they're doing? Like they're
Yeah.
trying to save money. It's like for the next 4 months I want to save, and like they just keep messing it up. What are some things they can do to like curve that?
A lot of the things, like obviously it takes discipline. For people that are watching this, I'm assuming are to be business owners, they probably have a lot of discipline because they've got to get this thing off the ground. They got to work their ass off to make it work. That pre-authorized debit from your bank account is a major thing because you have to consciously turn it off.
Okay.
It's going to happen every month. Whether you're thinking about it, there's no clicking on a button. Are you sure you want to do this? It simply happens every month. So that's, if you're worried about, oh, this month I'm not going to do it, like don't make it an active thing. Make it a passive thing where it's kind of happening in the background.
Yeah.
As long as it's a number that you can afford and it's not going to put you in an uncomfortable position from a budget standpoint, have it like a passive thing in the background. And if things get tight, and it happens, clients will call and say, let's put a hold on this for 6 months. Let's change the amount. So I would think that would probably be your best bet. Is just having it happen in the background. Just come up with a number that works, even if things get tighter.
Even if it's $50 a month.
Yeah, you just want to get started with someone.
That was the biggest, is just training that muscle. And then what's hard with entrepreneurs, I think, is you might not get paid the 15th of every month or the 30th of every month. I think if you're somebody who is getting paid that way, it's easier, and I would recommend that you do that like on paycheck day, so you have no chance of spending that money. And okay, instead of me getting $2,000, I got $1,800.
So it's just like automated, basically.
It's automated, totally. You pick a day, so if you get paid on the 15th, you can make it the 16th when the money actually comes out.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way to ensure discipline and sticking to a plan, I would say. Because if it's about like you going on and doing an online payment to fund an account, this month I'm not going to do that. I'd rather buy this, that, or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True. Perfect.
Take me back. Do 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 do.
All right. That's how you're wrapping it.
That's how we're wrapping it.
Go ahead.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Migraine Rescue. You're welcome. Thank you, Jordan. You're welcome.
Do it properly. Do a proper outro.
I don't know how to do a proper outro.
Just do it. Like you're wrapping up.
Okay, we're wrapping up, guys. So That was a really good, informative episode, James. Thank you.
I hope so.
I hope it.
Pleasure to be here.
Can people find you somewhere?
Um,
Are we allowed to post, like, if they want, you'll do like free consultations with people if they
oh,
want?
certainly. Yeah, for sure. There's no cost involved in that. Like you can definitely Google my name, and then my company name. I don't think we said it. I don't know.
I don't know if he's allowed to say it.
I don't know if I'm allowed.
But we could post maybe your email on the chat.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll post his email. There's some regulations with the financial industry.
It's just about like, my organization, totally reputable name. It's not like, but I just don't know. I don't want to be
James at stopbeingbroke.com.
Yeah, it's my own thing, closely related.
No,
to
it's a
Bernie Madoff.
reputable company, but we'll list the email in the chat, and then
Yeah.
if people want, you can do free consultations on the phone or in person.
Yeah, recommend in person. I typically don't for a first sit down. I typically will go to a person's house to make it a little bit more convenient and more comfortable for people because they're in their own home. And then you go from there.
Okay. And thank you guys and gals for listening, and we wish you all a good morning, good night, or good afternoon, depending on the time you're listening.
He can't do it. He just doesn't know what he's doing.
Bye.
Peace.
What'd you think? Was that pretty organic or what?
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, man.